I always like to, as a component of this class, even though it's a jazz theory class, I think it's very, very important when we talk about rhythm. Latin rhythms is something that I feel like I really need to bring an expert in for, and that's why I got Ricky Sebastian today. He's really regarded as an expert in his field. He's a master drummer. He's played with some of the greatest Latin musicians in the world, and I'm sure he's going to give us some insight into all the complexities and all the things that are kind of, one of the things I'd like him to talk about is this issue of when you write a chart for a drummer and you just write Latin at the top of the page. You know, what does that mean to the drummer? And maybe you can clarify like how we can be a little more educated on that subject. So how about a hand for Ricky Sebastian?
I see some familiar faces here, but for those of you I don't know, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about me. I'm from New Orleans originally, moved to New York City in 1983, and stayed there for about 17, 18 years, during which time I started my fascination with Latin music, Afro-Cuban rhythms, and started working with different Latin artists in New York, like Tanya Maria, Brazilian pianist and singer Jerry Gonzalez and his brother Andy. They had a great group called the Fort Apache Band, and also with a lot of other guys that were dabbling with Latin music at the time. People like Jaco Pastorius, and later on I started getting into African music when I was working with Harry Belafonte. So just a little bit of history on me. My fascination with Latin music first began here in New Orleans when I was about 19 or 20. I had a friend here, a percussionist. Do you recall Mark Sanders?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Mark Sanders was living here at the time. He's in New York now. But Mark was the first musician I had met that played some hardcore Afro-Cuban music for me. And the first thing that caught my attention about it was the fact that I didn't know where a one was. And being a drummer, you know, you pride yourself in those kind of things. Really, if you're a musician, you should, right? It's kind of hard to play a style of music if you don't know where a one is. So right away, that caught my attention. It was like, wow, I can't even hear the downbeat on this stuff. They got something else going on. Man, I need to check this out, you know. And then the second aspect of the music was the way that the percussionists would solo, and the way that they would stretch and bend rhythms was just fascinating to me. I had never heard anyone, or very, very few drummers in jazz, play with rhythm this way. And throughout the years of studying this music and its roots and where it came from, this led me back mainly to the bata drums from Africa and the language that those drums have. I mean, that's still something I'm scratching the surface on, but it's the way that they can bend rhythms. There's almost no difference between playing in 4/4, if you want to count it like that, or 2/4, or 6/8. Things just kind of slip from one field to the other, and it's just a continuum of time that is interpreted. Because when you think about time in music and rhythm, it's a continuance from where the music starts to where it ends. And what happens in between with time is how all the musicians interpret it as it's going by. And that's just how I see it at this point in my life. But if I could sit down at the piano for a second, just to demonstrate to you guys, in a lot of Afro-Cuban music, the bass plays a super important role along with the percussion. The bass player is playing a very rhythmic figure as well called tumbao. So if I play this bass line for y'all, I'm going to ask you if any of you can hear where one is. Okay? About this bass line, if this is the downbeat.
It never hits it after that first time.
What's that?
So after the initial downbeat, it never plays the downbeat.
Yeah, it's not. He's not playing well, me, whoever it is not playing on one. Okay, so when I first heard this bass line, and believe me, when I was 19 or 20 years old, the educational system in New Orleans and probably throughout most of the country for Latin music was pretty much non-existent. I mean, there was no schools here that taught this kind of thing, so you basically you were on your own to find out whatever information you could find by listening to records and whatnot. You know, no YouTube, no videos, forget that. You know, no instructional DVDs yet. So, hence my friend Mark Sanders, who had the killing, you know, Afro-Cuban record. That was the way I got into it. But when I first heard this bass line, I was hearing 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. I was hearing that, in this case, the G on 1. Okay. So, you know, my friend started laughing. He said, "No, man, that's not where the downbeat is. It's where you were counting 1." And this, of course, there's some little variations on that. So, that's for me. That's a big, important element of understanding Latin and Afro-Cuban music, is realizing that the bass is very, very seldom plays on the downbeat. That's done more for emphasis. And matter of fact, I find that the same thing is true in jazz for the most part. I mean, have you ever played with a drummer and you swinging, and every time you get to the beginning of the song, the top of the form, he just goes bang on 1. It's like, what a drag. And I don't need you to tell me that you know where 1 is. You know, it's like, once you get past a certain level, you don't really, drummers don't do that too much. You know, if you do play on 1 at the beginning of the form, it's really just for emphasis rather than stating, hey, this is the beginning of the song. Okay, so that's one thing I think that the two styles share in common. Okay, a little crash course on clave. How many of you are familiar with the clave rhythm? Okay, some of you. There's a clave in, you know, indigenous New Orleans music that's pretty popular in songs like Dr. John's Iko Iko, which comes really from old folk tunes from the Mardi Gras Indian tribes. And that clave is the first one I have listed on the board and on your sheet. It's called Son clave, S-O-N. And that's 1. Well, here we count it in 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, this has a different feel than the way we would play this in Latin music, and it's also counted in 4. This is another big thing about Latin music, is that it's felt in 2, 4. This is really important, because in jazz, the emphasis is on 2 and 4. You count songs off 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's, you know, walking bass line. Hi-hat is emphasized in 2 and 4 because jazz was originally dance music. The swing era, and people danced like crazy to this stuff before it became, you know, the post-bop era and more like musicians' music, so to speak. In Latin music, it's definitely a downbeat felt music, and it's in 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So when you hear the Latin horn sections playing all these arrangements, they are pushing the time. They're not laying back and playing behind the beat like some jazz artists do. It's particularly down here in New Orleans. The feel for New Orleans music is a little behind the beat, a little laid back. You know, Latin music, you can't approach it that way. You got to be on top to execute everything and keep everything in sync, because you have so many rhythmic parts and rhythmic elements that are working together. So if I was going to play Son clave with the correct feel, I would count it 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2. Everybody clap this with me? Okay, good. Right now, we're getting to another area. I've never heard anybody in Cuba use this analogy, but, you know, the fact of the matter is, people in Cuba, they grow up with these rhythms from the time they're little, really little kids. They learn these rhythms. They're not written down. It's it's a musical tradition that's just handed down from one generation to the other by ear. Here in the States, however, and other places, to teach this stuff and explain it, clave is broken into 2 measures. And it can be started in the time in 2 different ways. So it's become customary to refer to clave as 3-2 or, oops, got this one. Yeah, 3-2 or 2-3. So we're just going to focus on the song clave for the moment. The first measure, you've got 3 notes of the clave. The second measure, you've got 2 notes of the clave. This is where this comes from. So in 3-2 song clave, it would come off like this: 1, 2, 1, 2. Now some songs have 3-2 clave, others have 2-3 clave. If you notice, in the 2-3 clave, what's the first measure up here becomes the second measure of the group. Okay, it's the exact same pattern, but it's not, because it feels totally different when you're playing 2-3 versus 3-2. You can't really hear it when I'm just standing here demonstrating it with a pair of sticks. You have to hear it with the whole band, because a big part of which clave a song uses is the melody. The composer, when he wrote the song, was thinking of a certain clave on a certain side of the beat, and the melody is going to fit that accordingly. So that's one thing that takes a while to really hear in Latin music when you hear a song, is to understand why the clave is 3-2 or 2-3. So if I play a 2-3 song clave, it's going to sound like this: 1, 2, 1, 2. Now let's just try something. Let me get the left half of the room to clap 3-2, and split it down here. The right half of the room, clap 2-3. Let's see what happens. Think about what you got to play, or what you have to clap, right? Okay, 1, 2, 1, 2. Y'all must be music students. You see, you hear how it answers each other. One side, when you're playing, it's in the spaces of the other side. So this is a neat little coincidence about how these 2 claves complement each other. Now in rumba clave, which song clave you hear in older music from Cuba and Puerto Rico, where they were using a lot of string instruments like the tres. It's like a Spanish type of guitar. Then in more the last 2 or 3 decades, with the advent of the drum set and piano, electric piano in particular, the music started gravitating more towards keyboard types of sounds and horns and new rhythms, where they altered the clave into what's called a rumba clave. The only difference with the rumba clave is 1 note, and it's the 3rd note. If it's 3-2, it's just a 16th later. So instead of having, you have this. Did I clap this one? Keep that going. It's not easy. I'll kind of slip back into the song clave because it lays a little better. I mean, this 8th note does come down. This comes down on the 8th note rather than 16th. But there are some other parts that go along with clave to help reinforce it. One is called the cascara, which is written on the page that I gave you. Cascara. Let's look at 3-2. So it'll fit the 3-2 clave. timbale player in a Latin group often plays on the side of the drum. And many times he'll play the cascada and stick it and accent it like this so you can actually hear the clave in it. There's a clave, cascada. Cedar, can I get your help up here with those claves? Okay, let's play a 2-3 rumba clave for me. Go, go. That's one example of how those two rhythms work together, okay? As you can see, the clave, the instrument itself, is, you can hold them up so everybody can see them, the two fat pieces of wood. I forget exactly what type of wood these are made out of, but it's a very hard wood.
These are rosewood.
Rosewood?
But these are the best ones.
Okay, but you can hear they have a really high-pitched cutting sound. And the reason that they're used is because of the sound. That sound will cut through 5-piece horn section, you know, playing as loud as they can play arrangements. This will still cut through that. It's just a sound that cuts through everything else and keeps everything locked in, okay? So when you really start to get familiar with and study this music for a while, you'll start to be able to pick out the clave amongst all the other rhythms that are happening, okay? Now,
Is the word, you know, clave the same as, you know, refers to the instrument, also the same word, it refers to the pattern? Is it spelled the same way?
yes,
Okay.
C-L-A-V-E.
Right.
And
that refers to either the actual clave sticks or the actual rhythms you're talking about.
Well, the instrument, that instrument itself has also been used in classical music for a long time in the percussion section, but I'm not sure of its actual origins in his, you know, historical aspect, but yeah, it's spelled the same way for the actual instrument and the rhythm itself. But you have the way it's spelled on some people in New Orleans have permeated the word and pronounce it like clave, and they don't even say the E, but it's really called clave.
That's right, yeah.
You know, we got our own kind of English here, right? Okay. So, and Steve asked me to talk about something when I was, particularly when I was living in New York City. There'd be some situations where we'd be rehearsing new music, either for a Broadway show or, you know, recording session or whatever it was. And inevitably this one chart would come up for the drums, and it would have up in, you know, they just write the style up here in the top corner. They just have Latin, all right? Okay, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, oh, well, what kind of Latin? There's only like about 50 rhythms I could choose from in 10 countries, you know? So I had a few different experiences with this. I would raise my hand and ask the leader, I says, well, you got Latin up here on this chart. What do you want, a bossa nova, a samba, a flamenco, a mambo, a rumba? And some of these leaders would be hip to some of this stuff and say, oh, give me a songo, you know. More oftentimes than not, though, it would just be kind of a frustrating question for the leader and kind of expose his ignorance about this stuff. And he'd be, well, you know, just something Latin, man. So whenever that would happen, the first thing I would do is look at my best friend, the bass player, and we come to some kind of agreement on what Latin style we're going to play. Because if you don't do that, you don't agree on something, I might be in Brazil and you might be in Cuba, and it's gonna be like this. It's going to be head to head. It's not going to lock. It's not going to groove. Because if I play ensemble on the drum set, okay, the bottom is doing this. And the bass is usually playing a feel like. That doesn't feel anything to me like. They're not going to mix, you know. They're not going to mix. So that's very important. I mean, you want the bass and the drum should always be in agreement on this stuff to what country you're coming from. Okay. I mean, yeah, Brazil and Cuba, they both eat beans and rice, but it's a whole different season. It's not supposed to go together. You know, some people experiment with this stuff sometimes and try to put different styles together, and they come up with some interesting stuff if it's successful. But, you know, tradition-wise, you don't want to really be messing with that too much. You want to respect, you know, the style and the place where the music comes from. Okay, hey, let's play a little bit. See,
Oh, okay. I gotta
do we have
go.
any other drummers in here?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with any of these Latin rhythms?
Sam's in here?
Come on.
Yeah, I gotta go right now. I think y'all take over.
Yeah, sure. You can leave those with us.
You want to play it?
Yeah.
That's the good button.
Thanks,
You
dude.
want to play timbales? You got a pair of sticks?
The keys over there, too?
I got the key, I'll bring it. If you want to bring it.
Well, I gotta do this.
I got extra keys.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to use a 2-3 rumba clock. 1, 2. Okay, see how he's holding this? He's cupping this in his left hand. He's not holding it like this. Well, you know, you don't want to hold it like this because you're going to smash your fingers. But he doesn't have his palm resting on the stick like this. If you cup it like this, your hand almost acts like a little speaker cabinet, and the sound can really come out. This is the bigger one. This is the one you should be holding. Yeah. One is slightly bigger than the other. It should be. There you go. All right, cascara. So play a 2-3 rumba clave for me. So your rhythm's going to be. Let's work it. Turn your stick around that way, like. Play some fast tempos too. When we're playing a fast tempo, you can just play it all on the side of the drum. Matter of fact, let's start with that one, okay? But this tempo, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Put your right hand with him. There you go. The other notes with the left hand. music, you have a conguero, somebody's playing congas, tumbador, timbale player, someone playing clave, someone playing a handheld cowbell, and you have all of these different parts working together. And there'll come a point in the music where a big part of the percussion section keeps playing their parts and acts as a bed for either the conga player, the timbale player, or the bongo player to solo over, okay? And these are often like very extended solos. And a little bit earlier I was talking about how clave and the rhythm in this style of music is very elastic. It can jump from a 2/4 feel to a 6/8 feel very, very easily. One example of that is if we're looking at 3/2 song clave. And this is on the page that you have as well. And this can also be written in 6/8. It's often talked about in regards to a 6/8 feel. I'm playing a 3/2 song clave. I'll tell you what. No, let's make that a 3/2 rumba clave. This one right here with the extended 16th. So you got. This is 6/8 feel. Think of it as triplets. Triplet. So you got. And this fits into it. Can I get Sam? Can you come up and help me out with this?
Well, you have bass players in here too, if you think that.
You got your.
Because I'm always curious that.
Yeah, go grab it, man.
Yeah, because how the bass fits into that.
Go from that feel, 4 bars of that, 3, 4, to the 2/4. So your part here would be constant. 4 bars of that, 3, 4, and back to the 6/8. That, 4 of that. 4, just that. Keep that going. Okay, let's stop saying. Let's start off. We're going to start off with Cascara, 3/2. For 4 measures, and jump into the 6/8 for 4 measures. Keep going back and forth. And let us do this for a moment. I'm going to bring you in a little bit. Okay. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. Which one is this, 6/8 or 2/4? You feel it? 6/8? You hear how close it? I mean, it's the same rhythm. You hear that?
It's barely.
But if you get to a point in this music where you get so comfortable with time and how you're interpreting the rhythms that they're really, after a certain point, there's no difference between the two, because you're able to play it so loose, it'll fit in one or the other. You know? Play Costco with me? Try putting a bass line in here now. Here's what a clave is going to be. Let's take something with rhythm changes and see how. The other thing about the bass and the harmony in Afro-Cuban music is, say what song you think about? What would be your first chord?
Probably with B flat.
B flat, and
Like
the next chord is going to be what?
G7.
Okay, so he's got a G7 coming up as the second chord, right? The thing about this music is the bass and the other harmonic instruments, you anticipate the next chord change. In other words, are you familiar with what I'm talking about? Okay, just play your bass line. 1, 2, 1, 2. See how he's going to the next chord? 4-1. Okay, thanks. That's a big part of this music, and that's one of the challenges if you really have only played jazz and you start getting into this style of music. That's one of the issues you're going to have to deal with, is getting used to playing that next chord before 1. Okay, it's not just the bass that does it either. If it's guitar or piano, everybody's approaching the harmony in that way. Okay, let's try rhythm changes. With you want to come up and play clave?
Yeah.
Grab the cowbell.
All right, here we go. And notice how he plays the downbeat on the first measure. Why do you think that is?
As I set it up.
Sets it up. I mean, it's going to be strange to start a song from the very beginning, and you got this huge big hole on the bottom on the first note. But that's often the only time the bass plays on 1. Okay, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, say we're we're rehearsing for a gig, okay? We got some new music in here, and we use the same rhythm changes, all right? And I look at you guys and I say, okay, this song is 2-3 rumba clave. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Anybody have any questions about anything that I've talked about today?
I wonder what he should have played on, you know, when it went to the more the 6/8 clock, because the pattern he was playing on the bass didn't seem to work with that, you know.
No, it would definitely change there.
Yeah, that one I was confused.
Well, one thing you could play right there would be B flat, right?
Yeah.
My piano boy.
He has to kind of switch back to one.
Yeah, he does.
He's playing on one.
Yeah, on the 6/8,
The
it makes
anticipation don't
definitely
work
change
on
the
the
whole
6/8.
feel. try right there. 1, 2, 3.
Clave, pretty much like baseline wise, or would you say there's like a slight difference?
In between what?
When you're playing a bass line behind like the song Clave and the Roomba Clave, would you say?
It's pretty much the stays with tumbao. And, you know, it depends on like the era of Afro-Cuban music you listen to, and also the particular bass players or bands. You know, some bass players really stick with that rhythm for the most part through the whole song. Others take a lot more liberties. But with always that in the background.
Yeah.
You know.
I like you know, you talked about when we were talking about the generic Latin terminology, and then you said, well, what kind of Latin? It could be this and this and this. Could you just kind of demonstrate a couple of the different Latin and tell us the names of them at the drums? You know, this is you know, like the different variations, and which ones are you know, Afro-Cuban, or which ones are Brazilian, or you know, because there's a lot of different variations in all of it.
Well, the thing that for me that differentiates Brazilian music from Cuba and Puerto Rico, there's a couple of different elements. One is in Brazil you have this big silver drum that percussionists wear on a strap like a marching drum. It's called a surdo. And a lot of the bass line, the rhythm of the bass lines comes from this drum. And I mean, I'll do my best to demonstrate the rhythm for you on one floor tom, but usually you have, you know, there's two sizes of this drum, a big one and a little smaller one. Each one has a different part. But the basic rhythm from the surdo is this. It's 1, 2, 1, 2. So you hear that dunk, ka-dunk, ka-dunk in there, that, you know, this kind of thing going on. And the drums match that with what they're playing. Constant pulse, like a heartbeat going on every beat. This is very, very, very different from, say, a mambo in Afro-Cuban music, where basic groove is like this: 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. very different from this. Okay. Another Brazilian rhythm would be bossa nova, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. And I realized this later. It's really samba slowed down. You know, a little bit different stick patterns. Incidentally, that's an interesting one because all the other rhythms that I've talked about today come from percussion instruments. And when the drum set came out, the drummers in Cuba started trying to play as many of these parts by themselves as they could. So you often see a Cuban drummer playing clave with his left foot and playing some of the other rhythms with other parts of his body. Songo was the first rhythm that was actually concocted for drum set. And it's already about 30 years old. That's an old rhythm in Cuba, but it's still very popular here in the States. Another Afro-Cuban rhythm that you hear a lot is Wawanko. Originally from the conus. Okay, boom, beep, beep, boom, boom, beep, beep, boom, and it's adapted to the drum set on the tom-toms. Okay, so that's a few examples of the very, very rich culture of Latin and Afro-Cuban music. And like I said, crash course in clave. I hope you guys got a little bit out of this from today. Okay, thank you for.
All right. It's like there's some variations that people are coming up with.
Well, yeah, that's a continuum. You know, that just continues to happen.
Right.
Some of the newer Brazilian rhythms I'm familiar with, like samba reggae, for example.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty funky.
Samba reggae.
Samba reggae. I mean, when you hear the name, you think, oh, it's going to be like, you know, something like. It's completely different feel. And again, that rhythm, from my understandings, came from a percussion section, not a drum set. I'm just adapting it to the drum set, like 3 or 4 parts.
Can you demonstrate a partito alto?
Sure.
Because that's one we've been playing some of this music with. Start that one in a different place at a time. It's a similar concept as clave. They would sound like this. 1, 2, 1, 2.
you start it on one side of the beat or the other, it changes the whole groove. Okay. Interesting little story. When I first got the gig with Tanya Maria, she told me to come over to her house for rehearsal, and she would just start playing the song and say, "Play." And I wasn't real familiar with Brazilian music yet, and a lot of her songs had the portito alto groove that Steve just asked me to play, but you can play it on two different sides of the beat. I was not hip to this yet, man, and she taped the whole rehearsal, right? So we rehearsed about 2 hours. She gave me the cassette and said, "Go home and learn the music." I went home and listened to the tape. I was coming in on the wrong side of the beat on almost every song because I'd never heard the music before, and I wasn't really familiar with portito alto and how you could flip it over. Well, I did a lot of shedding that night. The next day, I came in on every song in the right place. But it was a very interesting way to break in a new drummer, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's the thing I feel the least confident about is like when I'm playing a particular song, like you're playing a standard or whatever in an Afro-Cuban kind of vein, is knowing which clave it's a 2-3 or 3-2.
Right.
Because I mean, it's like if you do the wrong one, then somebody in the rhythm section can throw something at you.
Yeah, cut you or something. It get pretty
They
serious.
used to tell me, like in that story in New York, man, like the cats would get together on Sunday and play in the park.
Yeah.
And they would have fights over like whether it's a 2-3
I mean, I
or
saw a
3-2.
guy sitting on clave one day, and he started playing on the wrong side of the beat, and dude got off the timbale and punched him, man. "No, you're on the wrong side." I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm not sitting down. I'm gonna wait till I really got together to sit in with these guys."
Is there, I mean, I guess you just have to know, right?
That was one of the aspects of this music that took me probably the longest to understand. And again, the composer of a particular song has the clave on a certain side of the beat in mind when he writes the tune.
Right.
And if you really check out the melody, it'll tell you which clave to use. But you have to be.
But there's a lot of this fusion
enough.
between jazz and like the Four Apache band where they're doing these monk tunes and stuff like that, which weren't written with that in mind, but they're putting Afro-Cuban rhythms.
Yeah, even a jazz melody, oftentimes it has the rhythm in it will suggest one or the other.
One or the other, yeah.
And I guess if it doesn't, it's just kind of up for grabs with whoever's arranging that particular song for this style. But at that point, everybody in the rhythm section got to agree which side of the song to make it happen. Yeah.
How about a hand for Ricky? Oh, I'm sorry, man. One more question.
I was gonna ask you, how do you deal with jumping the clave? Because I know certain songs like the clave will actually change like in the middle of a tune. And one way I was showed that happens is like the number of bars is like a little bit irregular or something like that. Like say if you have an 8-bar phrase and you want to jump the clave, you do it in the 9th bar or something like that, so it fits. Did you maybe talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, if that's part of the arrangement, it's definitely going to happen after a certain amount of musical time. So often music is split up form-wise into sections of 8 bars. That makes a lot of sense. You might have an A, B form.
That's funny because
I
went to an Afro-Cuban clinic at this JN convention, and this arranger, I forget his name now, but he was talking about how like the A section of the tune might sound like this clave, but the B section of the tune might not. So they were talking about how they would add a measure to the tune, so it would come out, is the arrangement. They would just have to add a measure so that the clave stayed consistent all the way through. Because you realize, I guess once you start with a clave, you don't want to probably change it in the middle, right?
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's asking for a train wreck. I'm going to leave y'all with one little interesting clave today. This was in 7. I learned this from Danilo Perez. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What I'm doing, I'm playing 2, 3 on the first measure, 3, 2 on the second measure. but it really rounds out nice. When he showed me, I was like, wow, man, it's bad. All
I
right,
want to hand it for Ricky
thank you.
Sebastian.